This We the People News. Arm length, people. I just want to add to this a little bit. It would have been just as easy to set a regular American flag in courtrooms, in churches, and everywhere else than it would be with that military flag of the gold syringe. So if we're not under military control, then why is all these flags on display in our government buildings or in our churches? It's just a question, y'all. So if you got the answer, give it to me. But that being said, everything has been so diluted to keep us dumbed down. Even when you challenge jurisdiction in the courts, they don't tell you what jurisdiction you're in. I wonder why. Even though the Supreme Court's told them over and over and over again, you must tell them exactly what jurisdiction you're under. You got the attorneys fooled, and some attorneys that know the truth will not tell you, and the judge will not tell you. Just saying, y'all. You decide.
And now, because now we get into the nitty gritty, because this is the important thing for us to listen. I mean, you all officers figure out your own gig with the military, but this was mine, right? I signed this document, and it says my enlistment agreement is more than an employment agreement. It affects change of status from civilian to military member of the armed forces. Right? I had a change in status from, I'm no longer a civilian, I'm in the military. I want my ID card, sir.
If status is not important, even in court, then why is the change of status on paperwork for when you're civilian into military? Because status is actually very important, people. Just saying.
That's why it's important to me. As a member of the Armed Forces of the United States, I will be, it has all these things, but one of them is entitled to receive pay, allowances, and other benefits as provided by law and regulation. Right? And, Title 10, United States Code, Section 506 says that, when you enlist, your enlistment doesn't end until 6 months after the lowercase w war, which, again, is the Civil War, which is still ongoing. So once you go in the military, you stay in there.
Okay, time to get down.
And I want to show some new proofs that I had found on this. Okay, so give me just a second to do that. Pretty much be done. Hang on here.
Not too bad.
Actually, before I close this out, again, this is the congressional record, right? January 28, 2021. You can find this online, sir. Just Google congressional record, put the date in you want, and a few other things. You'd be looking at these pages. Well, after they pretended to become members of the United States Congress by filing a fraudulent oath or counterfeit oath and avoiding the oath they were supposed to take and satisfy the 6 others. Then they said, well, we're going to do another oath. Because, hey, we're here. Let's do some more. Let's do an oath for access to classified information. So all these, by the Department of Defense Law War Manual, we could classify these people as spies, right? These Esquire spies are now going to impersonate again to get another oath so that they can have access to classified information, right? Now they have access to state secrets. Right? They could all be arrested today as spies. We don't need to wait. I mean, I don't know why we're waiting. Right? It's as clear as can be. Okay, back in a second. So, General Flynn, I've make sure I cover these things again and show you the points that I had talked about earlier. And go through this list, and we'll just go and see these different things. So we talked about Joe Biden, showed where we're supposed to take the alleged incumbents, what they did. Now, how about there are no state registered qualified electors for presidential elections? Well, where's that come from? Well, one place you would find it is in the sorry, sir. Get too many things opened up. Takes a long time to load. Would be in the video Avery is Supreme Law of the Land and Constitutional Sheriff Call 911 report election emergency. You watch those, you get, like all the details. But in a nutshell, what we're talking about is this, that in every state's election law, however it's written, there's going to be some way that they're supposed to register electors, because the state legislatures are the ones by the Constitution of the United States that have the authority to decide how we're going to pick electors. And so if you want to be an elector in an election, you have to have registered as an elector. And it's covered under registration of electors in your state law. Look how that all fit together. And it talks about the different qualifications, which are, basically the things you would expect. Right? But that's, you got to go into detail because it just takes too long. But what they're supposed to be then is some kind of registration affidavit / let's call it an application, as they call it later on, right? Where you swear and subscribe to something, which is different than when you go to register to vote, where you just sign maybe under penalty of perjury, but you're not actually swearing to something before someone. And there's supposed to be an application for registration. Well, there you go, right? Where's that thing at? And actually, it's supposed to have been the duty of the Secretary of State to have created this. So I don't know where ours is, because I've asked, I can't get one. Right? I mean, I've run out of options. I don't know where else to go to get one. I ain't seen one yet. But if I had one, then I would want to, under Section 499, register as an elector, which is basically an elector entitled to registration in an election precinct may become registered in the precinct by applying in person and signing the registration application before the clerk or assistant clerk of the township, city, or village in which the precinct is located. For the performance of his or her duties under this act, each clerk or assistant clerk has the power to administer oaths and to...
Sorry, I got background noise there. I got a 4-year-old, almost 4, and thinks he's the boss.
swear persons as to the truth, a statement contained in the application. But nobody's doing this, sir. We're only going down and, being registered to vote. But if you want your vote to count in an election, you had to have first register it as an elector. Otherwise, you're just participating in a popularity contest that they use to keep the sheeple happy. And they're hiding this fact. And so now the question is, well, where are these election precincts? And I say, well, that's what happened to the county. They split the county. Used to be divided by townships. Each supervisor would go together to make the board for the township. Under Avery versus Midland County, Texas, back in 1968, the Supreme Court ruled, well, no, what the Constitution wants is one man, one vote. So that would mean that each of these divisions of a county that's going to send somebody to a board to represent that division, they have to be based on populations. Right? So it has one purpose. It's all about elections. And we're not registering in that particular jurisdiction, and we're not being allowed to. Basically, I'm talking about the county acting as a municipality instead of the county acting as a subdivision of the state. Well, it's part of the, the shit that they're hiding from, sir. So, until that happens, sir, you got to quit talking, telling people to go out and vote. There's nothing to vote for. First of all, we got to take care of the martial law, which is in, of course, Article 2 of the Labor Code, the United States is still under military rule. Well, where does it say that? Well, hopefully I'll show you in a second. General Orders, number 100. Right, so when the President of the United States is acting as a commander-in-chief, he writes a general order. He doesn't write an executive order. Executive orders are for the president in the executive branch acting as a president. But when he's talking to the military, he would do it as a general order. And of course, General Order 100, Labor Code, which first says, in Article 1, that a place, district, or country occupied by an enemy stands in consequence of the occupation under martial law of the invading or occupying army, whether any proclamation declaring martial law or any public warning to the inhabitants has been issued or not. Martial law is the immediate and direct effective consequence of occupation and conquest. And every place you go into that we believe to be a public office with a public officer has the flag of the United States in it. right? That the United States is occupying the states in all those offices. It's just, we're not realizing that. So Article 2 then, martial law does not cease during the hostile occupation except by special proclamation, ordered by a commander-in-chief, or by special mention in a peace treaty, concluding the war. Well, that's never happened, right? We had an armistice at the end of the Civil War. We had an armistice at the end of World War I. Whatever we pretended in the Korean War, whatever never happened in the Vietnam War, Cold War, war on drugs, war, we're always at war. But the one that started it is this one here, and because, these things have happened, or not happened yet, well, then this general order is still in play. So I've never read this whole thing, sir, but this is what, generals are supposed to be guiding the United States under right now as, the guiding force of the martial law government. And all I'm saying is if you were to give all of us veterans our ID cards, so we could be the eyes and ears of the wartime government until we get a commander-in-chief properly seated so that he can end the martial law, we go back to being a civilian government. But until then, we're under martial law. I want my ID card. Right? Because I'm on the side that's enforcing the martial law. I'm not, an enemy of the state, which they're trying to make us all seem to be.
All right. We're going to end it there on that one. I was going to say something and I forgot. All right. This way the people knows. Arm length.